Autopilot engaged.
You bring us guests, outsiders, with a fleet no less. What have you been up to?
More than that, Royal Steward. I bring momentous news. The fleet, this Paranid-led fleet, it came from the Dormant Gate in watchful gaze. They have communicated with Kingdom End. They have no Kingdom End gate, but they have communication. We are connected to the network once more.
My word, if...
The delegation seeks an audience. May I?
Yes, of course. There is so much to discuss, so much to consider.
Royal Steward, would it be in order for me to accompany the delegation?
I'm sure you have other things to do. Diplomacy is not the same thrill as exploration.
Please, Royal Steward, with your permission.
Of course, Neelity. By all means, accompany the delegation.
Explorer, you have displayed some usefulness thus far. I'm tasking you with joining us in meeting the Royal Steward. I may have need of your insights.
You have clearly made an impression on the expedition commander. I sense you are becoming more central to his plans. Join the delegation. Watch this Royal Steward. I have some experiments to attend to, though I shall keep an eye on you.
Autopilot disengaged. Autopilot engaged.
These are not the same games. This game is a dog fighter.
Autopilot disengaged.
And RTS. Star Citizen is a shooter and a orbital extraction game. Eventually it'll probably play like Rust.
Docking granted. Docking granted. Docking granted. Docking granted.
You are fucked up or something. I don't know.
Docking aborted.
Comms channel open.
Docking granted.
Oh.
Successful.
A boron capital ship. In all my days. A perfect equilibrium of function and ergonomics. And with such flair. My current abode is penurious in comparison.
God, the music's good. Fuck, this music's good.
Ropalium near explodes with the joy of welcoming esteemed visitors. This historic occasion is the first
I've got
of
to
its kind.
pee.
I am Lita V, Royal Steward of the Provinces Adrift. On behalf of Her Majesty the Queen, and as her loyal servant, it is my profound pleasure to welcome an emissary.
Doc, awaiting pickup.
Ah, the silent one from our disappointing introduction. Your expedition commander hardly seemed in the mood for positive solutions. I cannot imagine that you presume to speak for him.
Assistant, perhaps uncovering more context first may help with your solutioneering.
I regret my approach at our meeting. You see, I have not hosted a diplomatic function in decades. Unfortunately, I am simply not in the habit of communicating with anyone other than Boron, you see. We Boron converse amongst ourselves, relying on complex structures of pheromones, not just mere words. There was so much to communicate, so much to cogitate upon, yet the words failed to convey my meaning. You must imagine it like painting an ocean, yet having only a single shade of blue with which to do so. You are correct, of course. There is no harm in reaching for common ground. I am embarrassed to say that our defensive capabilities are woefully inadequate. Ashamedly so. Our economy is so fractured. We struggle to construct anything larger, perhaps, than a frigate. We cannot even resource and operate a full-scale shipyard. For half a century of isolation, we Boron have had little need for a comprehensive military. I fear that we are wholly unprepared for the myriad dangers lurking beyond the gate. And should word spread of the valuable equipment and facilities proposed by the Alliance of the Word, it might be akin to painting a target upon ourselves for any nefarious actors in the vicinity. One moment. I have, even now, received word of split incursions. If we had anything of value to loot, we would not be discussing skirmishes. They would descend upon us in hordes. From time to time, I spend the waking nights pondering the very same question. It would be misleading to cast blame for all our miseries on the Great Shutdown. In fact, when we were first riven from the wider network, the vast majority of our boron systems remained connected between themselves. Isolated from external threats, we commenced a new age of reflection and scientific endeavor. And while this period of peace brought the wealth of Kingdom M to fabulous new heights, we were not complacent. Resources were stockpiled throughout the Queendom, a precautionary measure. Oh, we thought we were prepared. Yet in truth, we were far from it. We Boron are inherently connected to each other, you see. We thrive on a collective sort of innate affinity. Once that connection was severed, each system found itself in complete isolation. Things fell apart quite quickly, I'm afraid to say. Productivity collapsed catastrophically. Stockpiles were depleted far more rapidly than anticipated, and there was no way to replenish them. After years of disarray, Great Reef finally reconnected with barren shores. Later, it was joined by several other systems. The provinces adrift were founded, but by then the damage was done. We still lacked crucial resources. I contend that it was the collective psychological toll of the severance that caused this, more so than the evident logistical challenges posed by the shutdown. Your expedition commander hardly seemed in the mood for positive solutions. I cannot imagine that you presume to speak for him.
Assistant, perhaps uncovering more context first may help with your solutioneering. That certainly could have gone better, but all may not be lost.
The Protectorate has determined that this system poses no threat to the citizens of Sol or the wider network. Our orders are to deploy to a position of more strategic importance. Still, stay alert. None of us know what might be lurking out there.
The Alliance of the War thanks you for your support. You shall proceed alone from here on. Our military friends are needed elsewhere.
Sending you information now.
The asteroid is depleted.
Steward and I have had our differences in the past, but I had no idea he would be so stubborn. I am so very sorry you had to witness that embarrassingly discordant display. Leader Wee and I disagree on much, but he is not a bad person. You know, he is just scared. Oh, you took note of that, did you? Time after time I approach Leader Wee for the resources to find our way back home, but he has come to the conclusion that efforts spent on this endeavor come at an immediate cost to our people. I would hate for you to get the impression that I do not care for my fellow Boron here. Out on the fringes, I am truly seeking to make a difference for the people. Serving the Queen's subjects is a duty for me. You see, I do not like to draw too much attention to it, but I myself am the progeny of stranded minor royals. Before you bow or anything like that, I am not part of the direct line of succession, and that is not how our monarchy works in any case. Yet, it drives me to find a path back home, for the people to once again delight in a reunited, merry realm. I think he is scared of falling short. He carries the weight of the expectations of the entire provinces. He wants to keep everyone safe, and I think he fears that your expedition will exacerbate an already dangerous situation. Yes, fraught with danger. The provinces lie uncomfortably close to Kark territory. When Sanctuary of Darkness first connected to the provinces, it triggered regular
One of the
attacks.
races is named
We barely
Cock.
managed to protect ourselves with the meager military that we could cobble together. Thankfully, the waves have calmed for now. The Kark incursions eventually ceased. All attempts to communicate with these enigmatic creatures have failed. So I would hesitate to call it a ceasefire. It is more of a lull in hostilities. As you can imagine, the situation remains rather fragile. Pleasant travels. Hello again, Explorer. Yes, fraught with danger, the provinces lie uncomfortably close to Kark territory. When Sanctuary of Darkness first connected to the provinces, it triggered regular attacks. We barely managed to protect ourselves with the meager military that we could cobble together. Thankfully, the waves have calmed for now. The Kark incursions eventually ceased. All attempts to communicate with these enigmatic creatures have failed. So I would hesitate to call it a ceasefire. It is more of a lull in hostilities. As you can imagine, the situation remains rather fragile. Oh, you took note of that, did you? Time after time I approach Leader Wee for the resources to find our way back home. But he has come to the...
Pleasant travels.
I cannot see my mouse. You're so annoying. See, you're like glitched out or something. I don't know.
Hello again, Explorer.
See, the
Pleasant travels.
cheap silver. Beautiful. God, the game started to look really good now. Come on. Ugh. Thank you, Ye Old Entertainment, for the excellent content from my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel. I'm gonna go get some dessert. Oh, I gotta move. How many of these things do I have? I have 28 ore red salvage. Oh my god. Maybe I should go home now, actually. I don't know. No, I'm gonna farm. Well, no, I should go. I should like go home now. I think maybe. I could just keep going. I don't know. It is a lot.
You know, I had a boss who used to say to those of us who wouldn't stop talking about the good old days, you guys suffer from an excess of past. But then there were those unsufferable 20-year-olds who worked with us who were in the habit of becoming instant fanboys of the next thing that...
Okay, I'm gonna go get some dessert. I'll be right back. Oh, I had a bowl. Where did it go? No? Oh, there it is. Let's see. Okay, got some ice cream.
That wasn't even out yet. When said thing got announced for the first time, they would go out and browse every piece of media that got released on the thing. They would sign up to the thing's Discord, comb every Reddit that got made on the thing, and flooded Twitter with posts on the thing. They were the kind of people who would have 600 fucking hours in a game that wasn't even out of early access yet. And to those people, my boss would say, you kids suffer from an excess of future. But you guys are something else. You guys suffer from both of these things at the same time. You go from the nostalgia of the good old days of the Infinity Engine games and the original Fallout to the anxiety of the next early access game that can't come out soon enough. It's 50%, they don't make them like they used to anymore, and 50%, Alex, when are you going to make a review of this game that isn't even out yet? Guys, how about we live in the time being for the time being? How about we enjoy some of the stuff that's actually out there that is worth playing? In the last video I told you about the 4 RPGs that came out in the year 2024 that didn't quite do it for me. Link in the description, by the way. Well, now's the time for me to tell you about 4 RPGs that came out this year that are very much doing it for me. And I say doing it as in present continuous because I am not done playing any of them. So they can still go downhill or they can become a solid recommendation, which they aren't yet, keep that in mind. But at least 2 of them are very strong candidates to get their own video further down the line. 1 hour long with all the categories and numbers. But for this video, I just want to put them on your radar if they aren't already. So without further ado, here are 4 RPGs that came out in the year 2024 that met or surpassed my expectations, from the ones I've liked the most to the ones I've liked the least. Dustland Delivery. Mad Max and Vagras had a child, and it's called Dustland Delivery, and you are in the driver's seat of the experience. Get it? Because it's a truck, and you drive it? No?
Hey everybody, an old man's talking.
Dustland Delivery is a sandbox RPG that sits somewhere in between Star Traders Frontiers, War Tales, and Vagras. And while it's not necessarily better than any of these titles, it does scratch many of the itches that these other games don't. For starters, it's a sandbox RPG in which quests are not only a very important part of the experience, but also very good. Surprisingly so, in fact. And they are good because the writing is good. It's lean, clever, to the point, and more importantly, unpretentious. And it's all of these things without sacrificing its personality or the immersion aspect of the experience. Dustland Delivery does not have cinematic production values, as you probably can tell by looking at the footage, and there's also no voice acting. What it does have is very concise text snippets with bits of narration, description, and dialogue that convey all the information that you need at any given time. Whether it's a conversation, a short description of a character's facial expression, a subtle hint about maybe the way in which a character pronounces a certain word, or anything else that you might need to get the complete picture of what's going on and where, and what the people involved are like. And you can also tell when there's something fishy going on, or when someone isn't quite on the up and up. And having this information makes your decisions story-wise feel incredibly gratifying. And yes, making decisions is a thing in this game, and your decisions can be quite impactful. Sometimes their impact goes even beyond to the outcome of the quest itself. Take for example this quest about a girl who's immune to the virus that's turning everyone into zombies. Huh, where have I heard this before? Anyway,
Massive spoilers coming your way.
the researchers who are investigating the zombie virus ask you to take the girl to a certain facility, but something's fishy about this crowd, and there's clearly something they aren't telling you. If you poke around and ask the right questions to the right people, you'll find out that these guys want to go full Marlene on your girl. But this time you are not going through the motions of a heavily scripted game in which you have zero choice in the matter. This time you are playing an RPG. Something about the description of the place seems a little bit off. So you can go with her into the facility, listen to what the Marlens have to say, and then say, okay, cool, take your money and leave and go on with your life as if nothing had happened. Or you can go full Joel and say, over my dead body, bitches. Take the girl, get the hell out of there, and kill everyone who stands in your way in the process. You can also choose to tell the girl the truth about the the revolutionary militia group that started all of this in the first place.
Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
Which is a choice that you didn't have in that other game, by the way. If you do all of this, later on in the game, you can have the girl work at the procurement agency of your village, because child labor is tight. Or you can have her tag along for the ride and expose her to the perils of the road, which include, but are not limited to, biker gangs, terrorists, zombies, and radiation. And you can also have her take turns at driving the lorry, because child labor good, Prime Minister of Malaysia bad. Just don't give her any liquor, because that is completely unthinkable and off the table. I like that none of the quests in this game feel fetch questy, because they all tell you more about the world, its people, or the world-ending event that everyone refers to as the Fall, or the world that existed before that. And also, there's usually something big at stake with these quests, and it's often something that affects your party directly. I'm also quite impressed at how they managed to make situations feel tense or desperate or just plain hilarious and badass at the same time, which is another thing that I like about this game. It doesn't take itself too seriously. You can clearly tell that the devs were having a blast while making Dustland Delivery, and as a consequence, so did I while I was playing it. And there are a lot of nods to, well, us. When you cheese the hell out of a tight situation with your truck, the game says you bravely ran away. When you talk to a shady weapon dealer, he says, I got lots of guns. And that's just two of many little Easter eggy nostalgia pearls that are hidden away within this title. Now, if I talk so much about quests, in this game, which is supposed to be a sandbox RPG, it's because I decided to make those the turnstone of my experience, because I am a story guy. But you can make your playthrough about something else entirely. When I say that Dustland Delivery scratches many itches that other bigger and arguably better games don't, I mean it. Subscriber Leo404 said that while he did enjoy Star Traders Frontiers, he also felt like the game fell a little bit short of his expectations as a sandbox experience. He specifically mentioned that he would have liked to be able to conquer and customize his own planet. And I get it. And well, this is something that you can do in Dustland Delivery. You can find abandoned cities and villages and restore them to their pre-fall glory, whatever that was. I for one have never been much of a city builder guy, but having a stronghold in an RPG is tight. And Dustland Delivery sits just in that sweet spot where all the moving parts of the city building aspect of the game are numerous enough to make it feel complex and challenging, but not enough to make it overly complicated and frustrating. I am usually not crazy about long-term slow burn mechanics, but when I do have them in a game, and I am more or less expected to engage with them, I always like to have some form of early victory. And getting your stronghold up and running as a temporary free shelter and getting it to produce some water is a fairly simple task that you can achieve with relatively low effort. From then on out, you can progressively restore its farms and factories and start producing your own goods, which you can then trade with other cities. You just need to procure enough building materials to rebuild facilities and the right personnel to run each of them. I know that Major Maniac, a regular Discord channel dweller, has gone further down the city management path, and he's even established trading routes and agreements. And I understand that the game gets a little bit micromanagement intensive once you go down that path. But because I've leaned more heavily into the Mad Max experience, I haven't suffered any of these issues myself, so I wouldn't know. And that should tell you all you need to know about the game's flexibility. What I do know, however, is that you can't neglect your city's security, because when your town starts to get notoriety, it will attract the attention of some of the most unsavory types in the wasteland. A crowbar to the head is the best solution for the zombies and terrorists who come to your town to fuck things over every once in a while. And there is a recipe that you can learn to make one. In fact, there are recipes for all manners of weapons, truck upgrades, clothes, etc. And having a crafting specialist in your crew will not only increase the likelihood of you crafting a weapon successfully, it will also improve your chances of creating higher quality items. And there's a big difference between a standard, an advanced, and a legendary crowbar, for example. And this is something that you have to pay attention to in Dustland Delivery, because you want to have the best items that you can possibly craft at all times. And this includes weapons and equipment for your party members and your lorry. But having the best items all by itself won't be enough. You also need the right personnel taking care of things. Take for example that security duty we were just talking about. You want to equip the person in charge of your city's security with the best version of the best gun you can craft, the best melee weapon, and the best combat-oriented gear possible in every equipment slot. And an attack dog too, if you can. But you also want that person to have a very high attack score. You may also want to have someone with that same build aboard your lorry, because getting ambushed by zombies and biker gangs is a very common occurrence in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. And speaking of builds, the game offers a pretty robust character creation and progression system. At the beginning of the game, you get to choose your lorry from an assortment of options that have significantly different stats. You can't choose whether you want to go with a pre-made character or a custom-made one, And if you choose the latter, you can buy some initial equipment and supplies, and you can choose initial relation modifiers with the various factions of the game. More importantly, you can allocate attribute points to the various skills that you have in the game, and you can acquire a series of positive and negative traits to further customize your character. I'm probably going to go into further detail when I make a full video about the game, which is very likely going to happen. But one thing that I don't like about Dustland Delivery's character progression system is that choosing to go all in with a certain attribute does not guarantee that you're going to pass the checks that are related to it. In the original Fallout games, for example, if you focused hard on the 2 or 3 skills that you wanted to be good at and the stats that governed them, you could be pretty sure that you were going to succeed at most of the game's challenges that had to do with those skills. But like I said, that's a different story to be told at a different time. But let's talk about the one aspect in which Dustland Delivery outdoes its peers. To me, it's the feeling of adventure that this title is capable of delivering. Don't get me wrong, Wartales and Vagrant both rank very high in the feeling of adventure factor in the sandbox RPG league, but Dustland Delivery is just next level. You are about to go out on a trip from Valleyville to BD City. You're delivering a cargo of goods worth several $1,000s, and your fee is to be paid on delivery. You have 4 days and a comfortable amount of fuel, food, and water. You have been upgrading your lorry, but it's not optimized for every terrain and weather circumstance, but you should be alright. You walk about the city to stretch your legs for the last time before you get going. You chat up some folks at the pub to catch the latest gossip. You restock your spare tires, you listen to some street performers to get that stress level down, and you embark upon the adventure. Dust storms prove to be a pain in the ass all the way through, and the hilly roads are a bit more complicated than you had anticipated, but it's nothing you can't deal with. On the second day, however, you start to worry about how much of a toll these dust storms have taken on your fuel supplies. They have been stalling you quite a bit more than you expected, so you decide to make your rest and meal breaks coincide with the moments when the storms are at their worst, until you realize that they are always at their worst. You still have 2 days to get to your destination, so you should be able to make it without too much trouble, because you are a little bit more than 800 miles away. But the dust storms seem to be getting more intense and frequent, and your fuel supply has gone down to a point in which it's no longer viable to attempt to make a trip back. You also notice that you're not the only one who's beginning to worry. Your companions are visibly stressed and unhappy about the situation because they understand that bad weather and tricky roads are not the only problems you have. You are being forced to take progressively longer rests in areas that are known for not being the safest, and at some point the storms get so bad that your lorry's engine is just not up for the task, and you also can't see jack shit. You are forced to set up camp for the remainder of the day. Everyone's on edge because it's a highly radiated area, and the infected are known to dwell in these parts. You cook, you eat, you share stories with your companions by the fire, and you get hot and steamy with your girlfriend when you get the chance. You feel the stress dissipate after your little sexy escapade, but you can also tell that your other companion, who has also been secretly craving some hot steamy action herself, is visibly more stressed now than she was before, because she knows that you've been naughty and she wasn't on the receiving end of it. You try to console her but become more stressed yourself in the process. You take a look at your watch, you realize that you've wasted an entire day waiting out the storm, and that you can't go back to Valleyville because you don't have enough fuel, food, or water to make the trip. You're desperately counting on completing that delivery because if you fail, it's gonna be game over for you. But you don't get the chance to ponder upon these things for long because you're jumped by an all-star zombie horde in the middle of the night. You don't know if it's the anger that your other companion had accumulated for not being on the receiving end of your nightly passion, or if it's her natural affinity for violence and firearms, but she viciously takes to the task of shooting up some serious zombie ass. She makes short work of some of them, but a few still manage to close in on your truck. Holy fuck, you're out of ammo. So you resort to your legendary bat, which is legendary for a reason. The problem is that you are about as good at using your bat as Disney is at using the Star Wars IP.
Put a ticket in, make her name it gay!
But just as you are getting used to the idea of becoming just another extra on Michael Jackson's Thriller video, out of nowhere your truck's engine decides to be a team player despite the hideous weather, and you bravely run away by the skin of your teeth again. After a few hours, the storm wanes and you put the pedal to the metal to finally arrive at BD City, with no food, water, or fuel to spare. And you spend the last of your hard-earned cash bribing the guards because the city is under the protection of a faction who hates you. But you make it inside, complete the delivery, and get the much-needed precious cash with which you buy food, water, supplies, and more trading goods. And that's it. That's a semi-regular day on the road in Dustland Delivery. It may not be the fight against the Orphan of Kos and Bloodborne or the final level of Battletoads, but may lightning strike me twice where I stand if this shit's not as intense as those other experiences. Now, I could go on to talk about how crafting weapons and upgrades for your lorry is one of the most gratifying experiences that I've ever had in a game. One that not only elevates the quality of Dustland Delivery's main gameplay cycle, but is also designed in a way that provides early victories and a little something extra to keep you interested in crafting mechanics all the way through. Or I could get into the specifics of some of the other quests or the city management aspect of the game, but the more I talk about this clever little title, the more I want to make a full video about it, getting into all the details. For now, I think it's enough to say that this game, which I got for $3.58 when it first came out, and currently goes for $4.49 in my region, pretty much beat the crap out of my every expectation in the best possible way. It may not be the best game of the year, or even the best game on this list, but it has certainly been the most pleasant surprise of 2024, and that's why it gets a solid top spot on this list. Alldayerrydaybaby, Champions of the Four Kingdoms. So Alldayerrydaybaby came out just a couple of weeks or 3 ago. Then why does it feel like it's been around forever? Well, maybe because that's the amount of time it seems to have spent in the production hell of early access. Now, if you are an isometric ARPG guy or gal, and this game wasn't already on your radar, it may be due to one or several of the following reasons. A, you are a mainstream dweller with narrow interest who only knows or cares about the latest Diablo or the latest Path of Exile, and those are the only two games you ever play these days. And any game that is not those two is, quote-unquote, not your style of game. Or B, you did check Alldayerrydaybaby out while it was on early access and decided that the combat was a little too clunky, or maybe much too Dark Soulsy for you, and you don't want to have anything to do with anything that's even remotely akin to Dark Souls or any of its multiple clones. So you archived the title in some dark remote corner of your mind and never went back to it. Or C, you don't have time to go out on a quest to find the perfect game
it's
for you.
isometric.
You are too old for that, or you have family, a job and responsibilities, or you simply aren't that nitpicky. So your options are limited to those games that make the effort to reach out to you, which of course narrows down the spectrum of games that you do know about to those games whose publishers have big enough marketing budgets to engage in aggressive multi-channel push marketing strategies. And sadly, the publishers of Alldayerrydaybaby fall outside the spectrum of companies that can't afford to do this. Whatever the case may be, know this. Alldayerrydaybaby is a pretty good RPG that blends a series of different mechanics and influences and distills them into a flavor of its own. And the devs were careful and clever not to go too far down any path that only die-hard fans of any of the game's individual influences would care to travel. Combat mechanics, for example, include time to dodge, dash, and parry moves, but the game doesn't feel like a Souls-like. Story, lore, and questing are important in this game, but they never steal the spotlight from the combat. These elements are there to provide stakes and good reasons for you to go out there and kill stuff, or to take a break from killing stuff, which is also good. And loot is important, of course, but it's not the be-all, end-all goal that it usually is in the ARPG genre. Now, while there are a couple of things that I don't like about the game, I think that the devs nailed what they were going for the most part. But I can see many of you having a problem with what they were going for in the first place. I can see the isometric hack-and-slash ARPG crowd, for example, not liking the combat one bit. I can see them not liking the fact that you don't have a talent tree with synergies like you do in Diablo-like games. I can see the CRPG crowd rolling their eyes with the story and saying that the game only has surface-level lore and basic interactions with the NPCs, that companions could have been a lot more fleshed out, and that the game's many cities, towns, and ports all amount to one big wasted opportunity. I can see some of you saying that you'd hope the game had more emergent gameplay and survival elements, and I can see the Dark Souls crowd getting bored with all the non-combat stuff that you have to do in the game and dropping out halfway through. So far, I can only say that I would gladly trade some of the game's fighting areas for greater depth and more features and mechanics. The best dungeons in the game have puzzles, traps that you need to sort out, boss battles, hidden rooms, and a few extra mechanics. The problem is that only a handful of fighting areas feature all of these things, and even the ones that do feel a little bit too short. I also wish there had been fewer NPCs and quests, but more ways to interact with them in more meaningful ways. Ways that could have made some of the choices that you make at the character creation screen carry a little bit more weight than they do. But what can I say? I for one am thrilled to see Alloth's unique blend of mechanics working as an enjoyable, cohesive whole. I feel like I am enjoying the thrill of real-time combat without having to suffer through the endless frustration of failing time and time again because I did not get the timing of that one parry or that one dodge roll right. I feel like I'm finally playing a game that takes place in a medieval fantasy world that draws inspiration from the classics and does so with taste, without feeling cheap or overly tropey. And finally, I feel like I am playing an RPG in which I don't
Okay, guys, I'm going to bed. It has been a long time, something like 15 hours, I think, something like that. I don't really know what it, maybe a little less, I don't know what it's been, 13, 15, I don't really know. But anyways, I love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for, I got to reach the hype train, awesome. Thank you, Yagi boy. Thank you so much for the, thank you for the sub. Yagi boy. Yagi. Happy holidays. And then Gloribus resub. Thank you for the resub. Messages. Whisper. Thank you for the resub. Gloribus. Happy holidays. And then, there we go. Okay, we're coming in, and, yeah, and then we got nice, pulling some subs and stuff here. It's cool. So, I am, going to bed, but, I'm just going to remind you guys, thank you for hanging out with me. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Put me on in the background. Click on the cast face to donate, or come, which is a PayPal link, or come to my Twitch or my YouTube, give me a like, sub, or a follow, and help support me and my family. Thank you so much for your time, and I will be going forward here today, going to bed, and I will be up here tonight probably around like 6 or 7, something like that, and that's all I have for you. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you later, and that's all I have. Just a reminder, I have been recording a lot of videos, and I have thousands of videos